Welcome, my soft-thinking listener. You found yourself in the company of the sleepy sloth once again. A slow, scientifically minded fellow who enjoys facts, corporate histories, and the gentle unfolding of industrial growth. I must tell you something before we begin. Today, I consider myself a scientist in the chronicles of BYD. A scientist wannabe who is almost always correct, except for those few times when I am not. But even then, I prefer to drift gently onward, rather than fuss over it. Because what truly matters is the information itself. Before I start, please, let me know, what is the most boring thing you would secretly love hearing about? Let me know gently, in the comments. Now, let us begin today's episode of the early corporate history of BYD. In the year 1995, in the gently bustling city of Shenzhen, China, a company quietly began its existence. It was named BYD, which stands for Build Your Dreams, although at the time it was primarily focused on the meticulous manufacture of rechargeable batteries. These batteries, small but critical devices designed to store and release electrical energy in a controlled manner, would be the foundation for all of BYD's future endeavors. No one asked for this. And yet, here we are, considering the exact year, the city's climate, the small factory spaces, and even the humidity levels that might have influenced battery curing times. Let us drift, ever so slowly, into the following year, 1996, when BYD began producing lithium-ion batteries. Lithium-ion batteries are remarkable only in their mundane precision, layers of graphite and lithium compounds, separators so thin they resemble gossamer threads, carefully wound and filled with electrolyte solutions that hum a chemical lullaby, all designed to convert chemical energy into electrical energy. The international community of engineers and scientists would eventually notice, but for now, it was just another quiet year of painstaking production. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The electrolyte filling process, though seemingly trivial, requires extremely stable temperatures, typically between 20 and 25 degrees Celsius, lest the performance of the batteries drift slightly. In 1998, BYD extended its careful operations overseas by opening its first European branch. This expansion, though lacking in drama, represents the precise calculation of logistics, legal frameworks, and the painstaking task of finding office furniture that would not only support paperwork but also provide a stable, ergonomic environment for clerks entering minute product specifications. In 1999, BYD established a U.S. branch, another step into distant lands, quietly negotiating leases, shipping documents, and the consistent reordering of pens, staplers, and office chairs. These mundane details, often overlooked, are the very scaffold upon which industrial empires are built. By 2000, BYD opened an industrial park in Kaohsiung, Shenzhen, a sprawling area where the hum of machinery intermingled with the faint smell of plastic casings and the occasional metallic tang of battery terminals. It was during this year that BYD became a supplier for Motorola, another company quietly dependent on precision, punctuality, and the slow, inexorable march of small, accurate electrical components. Each battery, each terminal, each carefully labeled box, contributed to a larger, almost imperceptible rhythm of global commerce. And so we drift softly into the gentle year of 2002, my slow-thinking listener, when BYD, having already spent years cultivating quiet mastery over batteries, decided to float gracefully into the world of public finance by listing on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. This process, as you may imagine, involved a careful choreography of paperwork, numerical audits, and soft consultations with regulators whose pens scratched quietly across ledgers, their ink forming small, deliberate patterns like the gentle ripple of water over mossy stones. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The act of listing is not merely about shares and money. It is also a ceremony of trust, a very subtle dance of confidence where auditors, lawyers, and accountants harmonize their meticulous calculations, ensuring that each decimal point aligns perfectly, much like the precise layers of a lithium-ion battery cell. In the same year, BYD quietly began supplying batteries to Nokia, a company whose mobile phones hummed with the invisible energy of these tiny, cylindrical cells. Each battery, carefully assembled and tested, was like a minuscule heartbeat, giving life to a small electronic device that, in turn, connected humans across quiet, dimly lit rooms. You may not care. And that is completely fine. For the very texture of this work, the faint smell of plastic and metal, the careful labeling of shipment boxes, and the slow rotation of conveyor belts, all form a rhythm that is almost imperceptible yet deeply important, like the soft turning of seasons under a sleepy sun. In the subsequent year, 2003, BYD embarked on a new, quietly ambitious path by entering the automobile industry through the acquisition of Qinchuan Automobile. This transition, though seemingly abrupt on the surface, was the result of years of patient preparation, financial calculations, and the quiet study of vehicle assembly processes. The acquisition involved a meticulous evaluation of factory layouts, the dimensions of presses and dies, and even the subtle cadence of engine testing procedures. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The very act of acquiring an automobile company entails absorbing not only machinery and buildings, but also the intangible hum of organizational culture, where engineers, clerks, and line workers perform carefully choreographed tasks, their motions repeated with a kind of hypnotic precision that could almost be considered meditative. The transition from making batteries to orchestrating cars required BYD to translate its understanding of electrochemical reactions and energy storage into a broader, more expansive understanding of mechanical propulsion, steel framing, and the gentle, tireless rotation of wheels over factory floors. And so, we float softly over blueprints and balance sheets, over production schedules and the scent of freshly pressed metal, realizing that the smallest details, the torque of a bolt, the exact alignment of a chassis, the gentle calibration of a throttle, contribute quietly, unnoticeably, to the hum of industry, much like the slow, steady pulse of a distant heartbeat in a mossy forest clearing. By 2005, BYD had slowly but surely unveiled its first F3 sedan, a creation that would later become the first Chinese car to sell over 1 million units in its homeland. Imagine, if you will, the quiet assembly lines, where small robotic arms move with gentle deliberation, each torque and rotation carefully measured. The F3's success, unassuming yet monumental in statistical terms, was a result of patient design iterations, where engineers adjusted suspension angles by fractions of degrees and tested braking distances repeatedly, ensuring safety and comfort in an almost hypnotic rhythm. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The millionth car does not appear suddenly, like a magic event. It is the accumulation of countless small actions, meticulous stamping of chassis, precise painting under controlled humidity, the gentle hum of conveyor belts carrying unfinished cars past inspection points where trained eyes, soft, attentive, and tireless, verify alignment, panel gaps, and the subtle sheen of paint. The achievement, while seemingly numeric, is really a meditation on quiet perseverance, repetition, and the tender care applied to each vehicle, one after another, until the sum total reaches a quietly impressive milestone. You may not care. And that is completely fine. For the soft cadence of production, the whisper of moving machinery, and the repetitive, careful diligence of engineers and technicians together form a lullaby of industry, each car a note, each bolt a gentle pause in the rhythm of mechanical growth. In 2007, BYD Electronics International gently floated onto the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, marking another quiet expansion of the company's reach into the broader electronics market. Listing an electronics subsidiary involves a slow, deliberate orchestration of financial documentation, disclosure statements, and careful explanations of subsidiary structure to analysts and regulators, all conducted in hushed offices where the only sound is the scratching of pens or the soft click of keyboards. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The electronics business, much like the battery business, relies on incredibly precise measurement. Circuit boards must be arranged with microscopic tolerances, resistors placed within hairbreadth allowances, and quality checks repeated endlessly to prevent imperceptible failures. Investors, while reading prospectuses, may only notice the summary numbers, but behind these figures lies the subtle, hypnotic rhythm of production floors where fluorescent lights hum softly and trays of minuscule components slide gently past human eyes that verify, again and again, the correctness of each placement. The listing is not a sudden event, it is the culmination of planning, careful documentation, and the patient nurturing of trust, each decimal point in financial statements resonating like a tiny, soothing bell, reminding us of the quiet diligence required to make complex operations function with gentle reliability. And so we reach the year 2008, where BYD became a gentle ripple in global finance as Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway acquired a 10% stake in the company. This transaction, while seemingly monumental on paper, involved a series of quiet negotiations, assessments of production consistency, battery performance data, and gentle evaluation of automobile prototypes. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The FEDM, BYD's first plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, was also quietly launched in this year. It combined internal combustion engines with electric motors in a subtle dance of energy conversion, requiring engineers to monitor voltages, charging cycles, and engine torque with extraordinary patience. The hybrid system, while conceptually simple, involved detailed testing, battery packs slowly cycled through charge and discharge phases, thermal management systems gently regulated temperatures to within a fraction of a degree, and assembly lines moved at a rhythm almost meditative in its repetition. You may not care. And that is completely fine. For the whispered calculations, the careful assembly, and the patient observation of these quiet processes together form a lullaby of technological progression, one that drifts gently across continents and industries, settling softly into the minds of those who observe it with tender curiosity. And so we float gently into the year 2009, my soft-thinking listener, when BYD extended its quiet, persistent reach into the world of new energy transportation by entering the markets for electric buses and electric forklifts. Imagine, if you will, the gentle hum of a factory floor, where polished wheels glide slowly across smooth concrete, and the faint tang of lubricants linger softly in the air. The electric bus, a creature of steel and wires, relies on precise arrangements of battery cells, voltage controllers, and motors, all aligned with almost obsessive care, each tiny component tested repeatedly to ensure smooth energy conversion and a quiet, predictable rhythm during operation. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The electric forklift, while often overlooked, presents its own delicate choreography of mechanical and electrical balance. These machines must lift, move, and lower heavy loads without sudden jolts, relying on controllers that slowly modulate current flow and hydraulic systems that gently extend and retract, creating an almost meditative pattern of movement across warehouse floors. You may not notice it. And that is perfectly fine. Yet the accumulation of these small, repeated motions, the careful observation of temperature variations, and the subtle calibration of motor torque, together compose a sort of lullaby of industrial precision, where patience, repetition, and meticulous attention create an unseen rhythm of productivity that drifts almost imperceptibly across factories, quietly shaping the future of transportation. The following year, 2010, carried with it several gentle expansions of BYD's slowly evolving universe. BYD partnered with Daimler to establish the Denza joint venture, a collaboration requiring soft, deliberate coordination across continents, careful negotiation of corporate structures, and the patient alignment of technical standards for vehicle production. In the same year, the BYD E6 electric taxi quietly began service, its battery packs carefully arranged to provide steady energy for long, uninterrupted periods of driving, and its electric motors monitored with gentle precision to ensure consistent torque and minimal wear. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, BYD also commenced the production of 12-meter electric buses, a quietly impressive feat requiring measured orchestration of assembly lines, component deliveries, and system tests. Each bus chassis, methodically aligned, received battery packs slowly bolted into place, wiring harnesses meticulously routed, and braking systems carefully adjusted to ensure safety without abruptness, all moving in a rhythm that is almost hypnotic in its repetition. You may not care. And that is completely fine. For the soft cadence of this production, the faint mechanical hum, and the almost imperceptible scent of freshly molded plastic and metal together form a gentle, contemplative lullaby of industrial diligence, a quiet reflection on the slow, patient unfolding of technological infrastructure. In 2011, BYD added another soft note to its gentle symphony of growth by listing on the Shenzhen Stock Exchange. Listing a company on a stock exchange is not merely an event of finance, it is a slow, deliberate ritual of documentation, auditing, and verification, where numbers are examined repeatedly, decimal points carefully aligned, and projections scrutinized in hushed offices. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, listing also requires a delicate balance of communication and trust. Every statement, every line in a prospectus, must resonate with accuracy and subtle reassurance, like a softly spoken mantra, so that investors, analysts, and regulators can rest gently in the knowledge that the operations behind the numbers are sound. One can imagine the faint scratching of pens, the quiet tap of keyboards, and the soft shuffle of papers, each movement contributing to a rhythm almost meditative in its repetition. You may not notice it. And that is perfectly fine. Yet these mundane, meticulous processes, reviews of balance sheets, verification of production reports, and confirmation of subsidiary compliance, slowly build the invisible scaffold of corporate reliability, forming a soothing cadence that drifts through offices, quietly echoing the patient diligence that defines BYD's expanding presence. By 2012, the gentle hum of BYD's evolution manifested in the launch of the PHEV, a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle destined to become the best-selling Chinese hybrid. The PHEV combined internal combustion with electric propulsion, a subtle dance of power sources that required careful calibration of battery management systems, regenerative braking circuits, and engine timing controls. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, hybrid vehicles, though often admired for their conceptual cleverness, rely on extraordinarily patient testing procedures. Each prototype is subjected to repeated charge-discharge cycles, long-range driving simulations, and precise measurements of energy efficiency, all conducted under softly controlled environmental conditions. Engineers monitor subtle shifts in voltage, temperature, and torque, noting each small deviation as if it were a whisper from the car itself, guiding adjustments with the tender attention of a watchmaker handling the tiniest gears. You may not care. And that is completely fine. For the gentle accumulation of these careful observations, iterative adjustments, and repeated testing quietly ensures that the PHEV moves with predictable calmness, a soft pulse on the roads of China, embodying patience, precision, and the lullaby-like rhythm of technological evolution unfolding at its own gentle pace. And so we float softly into 2015, when BYD introduced its 7+4 full-market electric vehicle strategy, an ambitious yet quietly methodical plan to cover diverse segments of the EV market. This strategy, though potentially overwhelming if rushed, relies on meticulous market analysis, careful forecasting of consumer behavior, and slow, deliberate coordination between multiple design, engineering, and production teams. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, The 7+4 strategy entails 7 passenger car types and 4 commercial vehicle types, each requiring its own cadence of prototyping, testing, and production planning. Engineers and planners observe each variant with patient attention, noting weight distributions, battery placements, aerodynamic coefficients, and subtle differences in suspension geometry, as if every minor adjustment were a note in a slowly unfolding symphony. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. For the gentle coordination of factories, design studios, and test tracks forms an intricate, almost hypnotic pattern of activity, where repetition, patience, and meticulous care create a soft, persistent hum of industrial and technological progression, like a quiet stream flowing over moss-covered stones, carrying energy and purpose ever so gently onward. And so we drift gently into the soft unfolding of 2015, when BYD introduced the Song, a compact crossover that would quietly glide into the consciousness of the automotive market. The Song, at first a simple internal combustion model, embodied meticulous attention to design proportions, wheelbase lengths, and suspension geometry, all calibrated with a patient eye toward both comfort and utility. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the Song would later evolve to include the Song DM plug-in hybrid variant and the fully electric Song EV, each model a subtle layering of energy systems, battery configurations, and software algorithms that monitor charge cycles, energy recuperation, and thermal management. Engineers would carefully map the exact placement of lithium iron phosphate battery cells, considering weight distribution, center of gravity, and even subtle acoustic dampening effects, so that each ride felt smooth, predictable, and quietly reassuring. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. Yet the software of electric motors, the measured responsiveness of hybrid powertrains, and the gentle hum of an efficiently designed cabin all combine to form a lullaby of mechanical harmony. The production lines themselves, slow-moving and deliberate, echo this quiet philosophy, with robotic arms pausing just long enough to ensure torque settings are exact, bolts are snug, and wiring harnesses lie without tension, producing a rhythm of creation that is hypnotic in its careful repetition, a kind of industrial meditation that drifts softly into every corner of the vehicle and the imagination of those who observe it tenderly. In 2016, BYD extended its gently curious reach beyond roads, entering the realm of rail transit with the introduction of SkyRail, an elevated urban transit solution. The SkyRail system, a quiet marvel of precision engineering, relies on tracks, wheels, and guideways carefully aligned to tolerances measured in millimeters, ensuring that vehicles glide smoothly and consistently. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the same year also saw BYD release its IGBT 4.0 component for electric vehicles, a device so quiet in operation yet so central to controlling power flow and energy efficiency. Insulated gate bipolar transistors, or IGBTs, manage voltage and current with the kind of gentle authority that is rarely noticed but deeply essential, like the subtle support of tree roots beneath a mossy forest floor. SkyRail construction and component design both require extraordinary patience. Tracks are surveyed with precise instruments, guide beams installed and leveled with careful repetition, and vehicle software is tuned to ensure smooth acceleration and braking without jarring passengers. You may not care. And that is perfectly fine. For the whisper of machinery, the soft calibration of electrical components, and the slow unfolding of elevated transit networks together form a lullaby of engineered motion, a quiet rhythm of human ingenuity extending above streets like a feather drifting through dappled sunlight. The following year, 2017, saw BYD's quiet expansion continue with the commercial launch of the Song DM PHEV and the operational deployment of the SkyRail line. The Song DM, a plug-in hybrid variant of the compact crossover, combined internal combustion engines with electric propulsion in a carefully choreographed duet of power delivery. Battery management systems were meticulously calibrated to monitor charge and discharge cycles, temperature fluctuations, and regenerative braking patterns, producing a smooth and consistent ride experience. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the SkyRail commercial line required patient orchestration of vehicle scheduling, signaling systems, and passenger interface modules, ensuring a quiet, uninterrupted flow of cars above urban streets. Engineers and planners observed each system with a gentle focus, noting subtle vibrations, small timing discrepancies, and minute electrical variations, each recorded and adjusted in a cycle of patient, iterative refinement. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. For the soft repetition of assembly, testing, and observation forms a hypnotic pattern, where the hum of electric motors, the careful balancing of batteries, and the gentle rotation of wheels on elevated tracks together create a serene, almost musical cadence of transportation gently unfolding across cities. In 2018, BYD's quiet ambition extended into materials and design with the launch of FinDreams battery technology and the Global Design Center. The FinDreams battery, a lithium iron phosphate variant, emphasizes stable chemical behavior, long cycle life, and safety over dramatic performance metrics, producing energy in a steady, predictable rhythm. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the Global Design Center itself is a space suffused with patient observation, where designers slowly refine surfaces, materials, and ergonomics, carefully considering tactile feel, visual balance, and spatial harmony. Engineers examine thermal management of battery cells, ensuring that energy flows without sudden surges, while designers linger over the curvature of a dashboard or the precise placement of a touchscreen interface. You may not care. And that is completely fine. Yet the soft hum of testing equipment, the slow rotation of prototypes, and the tender calibration of color, texture, and feel combine to create a quiet, reflective rhythm of innovation, like a feather settling gently onto moss, carrying intention, patience, and careful observation into every detail of both battery and vehicle design. And so we arrive at 2019, when BYD quietly introduced the SkyShuttle, a transit product designed for automated, elevated urban travel. The SkyShuttle operates along tracks with extraordinary precision, relying on small electric motors, redundant control systems, and carefully programmed guidance algorithms to move vehicles smoothly without abruptness or interruption. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, each SkyShuttle unit is tested repeatedly for acceleration consistency, braking smoothness, and energy efficiency, with engineers patiently observing sensor feedback, monitoring temperature changes, and adjusting system tolerances by minute fractions. You may not notice it. And that is perfectly fine. For the gentle repetition of these procedures, the soft hum of motors, and the quiet orchestration of mechanical and electronic systems together form a lullaby of technological evolution, a slow, hypnotic pulse of human ingenuity that drifts gently above city streets, carrying passengers and the tender rhythm of progress with calm, deliberate care. And so we drift softly into the quiet rhythms of 2020, a year that unfolded with both challenge and gentle innovation for BYD. In this year, BYD introduced the Blade battery, a softly revolutionary lithium iron phosphate design, long and thin like slender blades of grass, arranged in a series of cells that are safer, more thermally stable, and more space efficient than previous battery architectures. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the Blade battery is not simply a container of stored energy, it is a delicate orchestration of chemical layers, separators, and protective casings, each element meticulously designed to prevent overheating and to allow energy to flow evenly, much like a slow river meandering over smooth stones in a mossy forest. The Han sedan, both in its fully electric, BEV, and dual-mode hybrid, PHEV, variants, became the first vehicle to carry this battery, requiring gentle coordination of motor controllers, regenerative braking systems, and cooling circuits to ensure that the long, thin cells delivered steady, reliable power throughout every journey. But the year was not only about cars and batteries. The pandemic caused BYD to pivot, softly redirecting production lines to manufacture face masks, an effort requiring careful calibration of filtration layers, gentle folding, and precise packaging, all carried out with patient repetition, like tiny, invisible gears turning in an immense, quiet machine. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. Yet the convergence of battery innovation and public health production formed a lullaby of industrious adaptability, a rhythm of careful attention and patient responsiveness, unfolding quietly across factories, corridors, and soft fluorescent-lit spaces. In 2020, BYD's first vehicle to use the Blade battery, the Han sedan, slowly took its place in the world. The Han, with its long, narrow battery cells, required engineers to think softly, almost meditatively, about weight distribution, crash safety, and thermal expansion. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Each battery pack in the Han is carefully tested, cell by cell, voltage by voltage, with thermal probes monitoring minute temperature differences, while cooling plates gently regulate the heat, ensuring that every journey is calm, predictable, and without sudden electrical surprises. The dual-mode PHEV variant adds a layer of quiet complexity. An internal combustion engine works in careful tandem with the electric system, softly balancing power delivery and energy recuperation. The production lines, slow and deliberate, move vehicles past robotic arms and human inspectors, each pausing long enough to ensure torque settings, wiring harnesses, and panel alignments are precise, creating a rhythm that is almost hypnotic in its repetition. You may not care. And that is perfectly fine. For the gentle hum of motors, the quiet calibration of sensors, and the meticulous attention to detail form a meditative, almost lullaby-like pattern that soothes the mind as much as it powers the vehicle. By the latter part of 2020, BYD gently drifted into the European market, quietly entering Norway with the Tang EV, a vehicle both imposing and subtle in its presence. The Tang EV relies on the same Blade battery architecture, softly translating Chinese engineering sensibilities into the northern European climate, where temperature extremes and road conditions require careful monitoring of battery performance, suspension response, and braking smoothness. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. International vehicle deployment involves patient adaptation, software updates must be regionally tuned, charging protocols harmonized with local infrastructure, and user manuals quietly translated with careful attention to technical terminology, down to punctuation and spacing, so that every interaction with the vehicle is calm and predictable. Engineers may adjust regenerative braking profiles slightly, monitor thermal management at different ambient temperatures, and verify communication between onboard systems and local charging networks, all with a careful rhythm of repeated testing and soft observation. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. Yet the tender attention to detail, the slow adaptation to new geographies, and the gentle orchestration of cross-border production together form a quiet meditation on thoughtful expansion, where patience and meticulous care carry technology steadily forward, like a feather drifting over calm waters. In 2021, BYD introduced the E-Platform 3.0, a foundation for a new generation of electric vehicles, beginning with the Ocean series, including the Dolphin and Yuan Plus/Auto 3 models. The platform, a softly structured system of modular components, allows consistent placement of Blade batteries, electric motors, and electronic control units, harmonizing energy flow, vehicle dynamics, and interior space with patient precision. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Modular platforms reduce variation and allow engineers to replicate thermal management systems, suspension geometries, and wiring layouts across multiple models, quietly streamlining production while maintaining the calm, predictable quality of each vehicle. Each prototype is observed repeatedly, voltage and current flows mapped with patient attention, software control parameters adjusted in slow increments, and minor deviations meticulously recorded and corrected. You may not care. And that is perfectly fine. For the gentle alignment of modular systems, the soft hum of battery cells, and the patient orchestration of components across the Ocean series together create a meditative cadence, a quiet rhythm of innovation drifting like mist over a still forest, carrying with it a sense of thoughtful, meticulous care. Also in 2021, BYD celebrated the quiet milestone of its 1 millionth new energy vehicle rolling off the production line, every single EV using the Blade battery. Each vehicle, though similar in many ways, represents countless hours of slow, careful assembly, repeated testing, and patient calibration. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The 1 millionth EV is not just a number, it is the accumulation of precise torque measurements, repeated inspections of battery cell connections, careful alignment of chassis components, and meticulous verification of software parameters. Engineers observe voltages, temperatures, and mechanical tolerances with the kind of slow patience that might seem invisible to most, yet forms the essential rhythm underlying each car's quiet performance. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. For the soft repetition of assembly, the gentle hum of electric motors being tested, and the tender attention applied to every detail together form a lullaby of industrial precision, a calm, unhurried celebration of engineering diligence in patient technological evolution, softly echoing across the floors of BYD's factories and into the minds of those who observe it tenderly. And so we drift gently into the soft unfolding of 2022, my slow-thinking listener, when BYD quietly took a remarkably deliberate step by ending the production of internal combustion engine vehicles, becoming the first original equipment manufacturer in the world to do so. Imagine, if you will, the soft hum of machinery gradually slowing, assembly lines once dedicated to engines with pistons, camshafts, and exhaust manifolds quietly winding down, each mechanical movement measured, precise, and deliberate, like the gentle pulse of a distant tide. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Ceasing production of internal combustion engines is not simply about turning off machines, it involves months, even years, of careful planning, inventory calibration, retraining of personnel, and reconfiguration of production lines, ensuring that the transition to exclusively new energy vehicles proceeds without abrupt disruption. Engineers and technicians observe and adjust tool settings, machine alignment, and even subtle lubrication schedules, accounting for each component that will no longer be needed, while simultaneously preparing infrastructure for electric motor assembly, battery pack integration, and software calibration. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. Yet the rhythm of industrial transformation, the slow migration from combustion to electrification, and the gentle care in maintaining operational continuity form a quiet, meditative pattern of corporate evolution, echoing softly through factory halls, over conveyor belts, and across the minds of those who ponder the meticulous choreography of technological transition. Later in 2022, BYD's cumulative new energy vehicle sales quietly surpassed 3 million units, a milestone achieved through the steady, patient accumulation of production, distribution, and delivery processes. Each vehicle represents countless hours of assembly, inspection, software calibration, and battery integration, repeated with patient diligence across multiple factories. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The process of counting cumulative sales is more than arithmetic, it reflects careful record-keeping, the verification of serial numbers, warranty tracking, and confirmation of delivery reports from distributors across numerous regions. The soft cadence of rolling EVs off the production line, the quiet hum of robotic arms tightening bolts, and the gentle monitoring of battery voltages all contribute to this unassuming yet impressive milestone. You may not care. And that is completely fine. For the slow, repeated actions, the measured oversight, and the gentle orchestration of logistics quietly combine to create a rhythm of industrial patience, a subtle lullaby of achievement that drifts over factory floors, through shipping depots, and into the collective quiet consciousness of the automotive world. In the same year, BYD introduced cell-to-body, or CTB, technology, a softly innovative design philosophy where the battery pack is integrated more fully into the vehicle structure, forming a cohesive chassis that improves rigidity, safety, and energy efficiency. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, CTB technology is a careful orchestration of material science and mechanical engineering. Battery modules are shaped and positioned to bear structural loads, thermal expansion is managed delicately, and protective enclosures are bonded with adhesives that cure over hours, each step executed with slow, precise attention. Alongside this technological unveiling, the BYD Seal sedan began its pre-sale, inviting soft curiosity from prospective buyers as brochures and online materials detailed dimensions, range, and battery configurations with careful clarity. Engineers would have spent hours testing torsional stiffness, crashworthiness, and thermal performance, observing every tiny variation as if listening to a faint, whispered signal. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. For the gentle integration of cells into the vehicle body, the slow adjustments of design tolerances, and the patient calibration of each assembly step form a quiet meditation on structural harmony, like moss slowly growing over stone, soft, deliberate, and unhurried. As we float into 2023, BYD quietly expanded its horizon by launching the premium Yangwang brand, introducing the U8 SUV and the U9 supercar. These vehicles, though luxurious and performance-oriented, are built with the same gentle attention to detail that characterizes all BYD production. Weight distribution, battery placement, motor calibration, and chassis rigidity are all measured, tested, and refined with patient repetition. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the U9 supercar, while capable of high-speed performance, relies on subtle aerodynamics, thermal management, and software-controlled power delivery, all meticulously tuned to ensure smooth acceleration and energy efficiency, even at the edges of extreme driving conditions. Engineers may adjust torque curves in increments as small as fractions of a percent, observe battery temperature fluctuations, and test suspension damping repeatedly, each iteration soft and deliberate. You may not care. And that is completely fine. For the careful observation, the slow repetition, and the quiet orchestration of high-performance systems together create a lullaby of precision, a soft, reflective rhythm of engineering excellence that drifts gently over the minds of those who imagine vehicles not as tools of excitement, but as carefully calibrated machines in perfect, unhurried balance. Also in 2023, BYD quietly launched the Fangchengbao off-road brand, expanding its portfolio into rugged terrain vehicles designed to navigate uneven surfaces with steady, reliable motion. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, off-road vehicle development involves patient attention to suspension travel, torque distribution, chassis articulation, and wheel alignment, all measured in tiny fractions of degrees and millimeters. Engineers repeatedly test vehicles over gravel, sand, mud, and inclines, monitoring shock absorption, drivetrain behavior, and battery thermal performance under slow, methodical observation. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. For the repetitive testing, the gentle calibration of mechanical components, and the careful observation of energy management collectively form a quiet, contemplative rhythm, a soft echo of diligence and patience that drifts like mist over forested trails, settling tenderly into every corner of vehicle design and engineering thought. And so we float softly into the gentle currents of 2023, when BYD quietly achieved total sales of approximately 3 million vehicles, including a tenderly remarkable 1.6 million electric vehicles, and gently surpassed Tesla in EV sales during the fourth quarter. Imagine, if you will, The subtle rhythm of factories producing thousands of vehicles with careful repetition, each robotic arm moving deliberately, each battery pack integrated with patient precision, each sensor calibrated softly, without sudden motion, almost as if the vehicles themselves are learning to breathe slowly. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Surpassing another manufacturer, even one as widely known as Tesla, is not a dramatic event of fireworks and applause. Rather, it is the accumulation of countless small decisions, software updates carefully tested, supply chains aligned with slow diligence, energy management systems verified under repeated cycles, and quality checks conducted in serene repetition. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. For the quiet rhythm of assembly lines, the gentle whir of electric motors in testing bays, and the soft monitoring of battery voltages collectively form a kind of lullaby of industrial patience, a calm pulse of technological dedication that drifts over factory floors, through shipping yards, and into the softly expanding consciousness of the global EV market. In 2023, BYD released the Seagull, a small, low-cost battery electric vehicle designed for accessibility, and within 7 months, production quietly reached 200,000 units. The Seagull also became the first BYD model to be sold globally, an achievement that required patient coordination of international regulations, shipping logistics, and charging infrastructure compatibility. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Producing a vehicle so compact and efficient involves meticulous attention to weight distribution, battery cell arrangement, and energy efficiency. Engineers observe charge and discharge cycles repeatedly, monitor motor temperatures with gentle care, and adjust software parameters incrementally, like a soft composer refining each note in a lullaby. You may not care. And that is completely fine. Yet the cumulative care of production lines, testing facilities, and logistics quietly harmonizes to ensure that each Seagull travels predictably, safely, and efficiently, forming a subtle rhythm of patience and technical orchestration that is almost imperceptible, but profoundly present, as if the vehicle itself were exhaling slowly into the world. Also in 2023, the Yuan Plus, known in some markets as the Auto 3, quietly crossed the production milestone of 500,000 units in 19 months, with exports to 55 countries, gently weaving BYD's influence across continents. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. International vehicle production is not merely about shipping, it involves careful observation of regulatory compliance, gentle coordination of translation for manuals and software, and patient calibration of charging protocols to suit varying regional electricity characteristics. Engineers check thermal behavior, battery degradation rates, and suspension response, each measurement repeated in soft, deliberate cycles, ensuring that vehicles perform predictably across diverse geographies. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. Yet this quiet orchestration of production, adaptation, and export forms a rhythm like slowly falling leaves on a tranquil forest floor, a soft meditation on careful attention and an unhurried diligence that drifts gently into every exported vehicle, carrying with it the calm imprint of meticulous engineering. Later in 2023, BYD opened the Super Experience store in Sydney, a softly illuminated space designed for exploration, education, and gentle interaction with vehicles and technology. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Creating such a store is not simply about aesthetics, it requires careful measurement of visitor flow, subtle control of lighting to reduce glare on screens and reflective surfaces, and the patient arrangement of displays so that each vehicle can be observed quietly from multiple angles. Staff are trained to provide information with slow, deliberate clarity, allowing potential customers to absorb technical specifications, energy consumption details, and battery performance metrics at their own gentle pace. You may not care. And that is completely fine. Yet the quiet choreography of space, information, and human attention creates a reflective rhythm, a soft, ambient environment that mirrors the unhurried precision of BYD's manufacturing processes, forming a lullaby of experience that drifts softly through the minds of visitors. And so, in 2023, BYD reached another softly remarkable milestone, the sale of its 5th millionth new energy vehicle in August, quietly followed by the achievement of 10 million NEVs by November 2024. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. These numbers are not merely statistics, they are the slow accumulation of careful assembly, repeated testing, and patient calibration of millions of components, each battery cell, motor, and electronic control unit gently observed and adjusted. Engineers and technicians track voltages, temperatures, and mechanical tolerances in soft cycles of observation, ensuring that each vehicle delivers consistent performance. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. For the quiet repetition of these actions, the gentle hum of production lines, and the soft orchestration of logistics together form a meditative rhythm, a slow, unhurried cadence of progress, like mist drifting over mossy stones, settling softly into the world and carrying with it the unassuming, persistent heartbeat of BYD's evolution. And so we drift softly into the later moments of 2023, when BYD's quiet expansion gently included the launch of the Denza D9 and N7 models, while the company increased its stake in Denza to 90%, a softly significant recalibration of ownership that reflects both patient investment strategy and careful alignment of brand and technology. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Acquiring a larger stake in an automotive joint venture is not merely a matter of financial transfer, it involves meticulous evaluation of corporate governance structures, gradual adjustment of operational oversight, and the soft alignment of engineering standards across factories and design teams. Each vehicle, whether the D9 or N7, is observed in patient cycles of prototype testing, aerodynamic measurement, and battery integration checks, while management gently coordinates strategic decisions, production quotas, and market positioning. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. Yet the rhythm of ownership adjustment, the slow refinement of product lines, and the gentle synchronization of management and engineering together form a quiet, meditative cadence, as deliberate as a feather drifting in a calm draft, softly settling across every department and factory floor. In 2023, the Denza Z9 GT quietly made a notable appearance, recording 5,000 orders within 36 hours of its launch, a softly remarkable echo of market interest. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Such rapid accumulation of orders is supported by patient coordination of digital systems, careful server capacity planning, and meticulous verification of customer information and delivery logistics. Engineers monitor battery production schedules, motor assembly, and software configuration in repeated cycles to ensure that each Z9 GT can be manufactured and delivered without abrupt variation in quality or timing. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. For the gentle orchestration of online systems, manufacturing oversight, and shipping logistics together forms a quiet, intricate rhythm, like slowly turning gears moving in perfect harmony, each rotation echoing softly through warehouses, factories, and administrative offices, carrying with it the tender echo of human attention and patient preparation. Later in 2023, BYD quietly opened its first showroom in Tokyo, a softly illuminated space designed to gently showcase vehicles, technology, and interactive displays for visitors and prospective customers. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Designing a showroom involves careful spatial planning, lighting calibration, and soft arrangement of vehicles to allow undisturbed observation from multiple angles. Staff are trained to provide explanations slowly and clearly, detailing vehicle range, battery chemistry, thermal management, and regenerative braking patterns with tender care, while ambient sound and subtle temperature control maintain a calm, reflective environment. You may not notice it. And that is perfectly fine. For the slow choreography of space, light, and human interaction mirrors the unhurried precision of BYD's manufacturing processes, creating a soft, contemplative rhythm that settles gently over the Tokyo showroom, like sunlight filtering through mossy leaves onto a quiet forest path. In 2023, BYD also launched the Seal sedan in Brazil and Colombia, softly expanding its presence into South America. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Introducing a vehicle in new countries requires patient adaptation to regulatory frameworks, climate considerations, and local energy infrastructure. Engineers carefully review temperature extremes, battery thermal management, motor torque curves, and charging protocols, repeating tests in simulated and real-world conditions. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. Yet the gentle calibration of components, the slow observation of performance metrics, and the careful training of local staff combine to create a meditative rhythm of preparation, echoing softly through showrooms, service centers, and the quiet minds of owners exploring their new vehicles. Also in 2023, the Song Plus DMi quietly launched in Ecuador, extending BYD's hybrid reach, and the Auto 3 gently entered Singapore's market. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Hybrid vehicles like the Song Plus DMi require careful management of energy flow between internal combustion engines and electric motors, with engineers monitoring charge cycles, regenerative braking behavior, and thermal stability repeatedly, while electric-only vehicles like the Auto 3 demand patient calibration of battery management systems, software control algorithms, and charging station compatibility. You may not care. And that is completely fine. Yet the soft orchestration of vehicle systems, the slow repetition of testing, and the gentle alignment of production and delivery form a quiet, reflective cadence, like drifting feathers over mossy stone, softly extending BYD's presence across diverse countries, and carrying with it the tender, meticulous rhythm of global automotive patience. And so we drift gently into the soft expanses of 2024, when BYD quietly introduced the Bernti model in Tajikistan, alongside the tender unveiling of the Shark pickup and the Yuan Up in Panama and Costa Rica, a gentle spread of vehicles across diverse geographies, each with its own subtly unique adaptation to local climates, terrain, and infrastructure. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Introducing vehicles to multiple countries is not merely a matter of shipping, it involves careful calibration of battery thermal management to suit varying temperatures, soft adjustment of motor control algorithms for different fuel qualities or electric grids, and patient verification of safety compliance with regulatory standards that differ from region to region. Engineers and technicians observe charge and discharge cycles, suspension responses, and torque distribution in repeated, patient sequences, ensuring that each Bernti, Shark, or Yuan Up delivers consistent and predictable performance, while designers softly consider ergonomic elements, interior materials, and cabin acoustics, so that every driver and passenger experiences the vehicle as intended. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. Yet the gentle orchestration of logistics, assembly, and calibration forms a quiet rhythm, like slowly turning gears enveloped in mist, a soft cadence of industrial patience drifting across continents, reaching quietly into the streets, roads, and gentle hills where these vehicles will eventually settle. Later in 2024, BYD introduced the M6 MPV in Thailand, softly expanding its presence in Southeast Asia, and simultaneously opened a new showroom in Dubai, a space designed for slow, unhurried exploration of vehicle form, technology, and detail. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Introducing the M6 involves careful attention to interior space utilization, energy efficiency for both hybrid and electric variants, and repeated testing of chassis dynamics to ensure predictable handling in urban and suburban conditions. The Dubai showroom, meanwhile, requires patient design of lighting, display angles, and interactive information systems, allowing visitors to observe battery placement, motor components, and software displays at a soft, contemplative pace. Engineers and showroom staff alike maintain a quiet rhythm of demonstration, monitoring, and explanation, ensuring that every interaction is measured, precise, and serene. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. For the soft repetition of observation, the gentle calibration of systems, and the quiet orchestration of experience together form a lullaby of careful attention, settling into both the minds of engineers and the contemplative space of showroom visitors, like sunlight softly filtering through distant clouds over a calm landscape. In 2024, the Sealion 07, previously unveiled in 2023, quietly launched in Beijing and began gentle distribution in Hong Kong, a softly ambitious step in BYD's growing electric vehicle portfolio. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the Sealion 07 relies on patient integration of blade batteries, thermal management systems, and advanced electric drivetrains, with engineers repeatedly measuring voltage, current, and temperature across every module, ensuring consistency and safety. Each vehicle is gently observed during software calibration, regenerative braking tuning, and motor testing, creating a rhythm of careful repetition, soft enough to be almost imperceptible, yet precise in its outcomes. You may not care. And that is completely fine. Yet the quiet diligence of component testing, assembly oversight, and distribution preparation forms a reflective cadence, like drifting feathers over calm waters, ensuring that every Sealion 07 carries the imprint of meticulous engineering care as it moves slowly into the urban landscapes of Beijing and Hong Kong. Also in 2024, BYD launched the Song Pro DMI and the Sealion 05 DMI, while the Sealion 07 quietly entered European markets, requiring soft adaptation to varied climate conditions, charging infrastructure, and regulatory frameworks. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, exporting vehicles to Europe involves repeated verification of battery thermal behavior under lower and higher temperatures, soft recalibration of electronic stability programs, and patient adjustment of regenerative braking profiles to match local expectations. Engineers quietly observe torque distribution, suspension response, and software integration, repeating each test multiple times to ensure predictable, calm performance. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. Yet the tender orchestration of design, testing, and adaptation forms a soft, meditative rhythm, like moss slowly covering stone, gently ensuring that every exported vehicle performs as intended in an entirely new landscape. And in 2024, the Fengchengbao brand softly introduced the Bao 8 in China, a gentle expansion of the off-road segment. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, developing off-road vehicles requires patient attention to torque distribution, chassis articulation, suspension travel, and energy efficiency, with repeated testing across sand, gravel, mud, and subtle inclines. Engineers observe battery performance, motor thermal behavior, and software-controlled stability in slow, deliberate cycles, ensuring that each Bao 8 navigates challenging terrain predictably, while designers softly adjust interior ergonomics, cabin acoustics, and cargo organization. You may not care. And that is completely fine. Yet the quiet, repeated observation of mechanical, electronic, and structural components forms a meditative cadence, like a feather drifting through soft air, settling gently across the Bao 8 structure and quietly marking the patient rhythm of BYD's thoughtful expansion into diverse vehicle segments. And so we drift softly into the gentle unfolding of 2024, when BYD quietly released the Yuan Up, also known in some regions as the Yuan Pro, in Mexico, extending the company's softly deliberate presence into North America. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Introducing a vehicle into a new country is not simply about shipping containers and dealership openings, it involves patient adaptation to local voltage standards, charging infrastructure compatibility, and climate-specific thermal management of batteries and electric motors. Engineers softly observe energy flow, monitor thermal behavior under varying temperature ranges, and adjust software parameters in gentle, repeated cycles, ensuring that each Yuan performs predictably under conditions that may differ from its original design. Designers attend with quiet care to interior ergonomics, cabin acoustics, and user interface adjustments, subtly adapting displays, climate control systems, and seating arrangements to suit local expectations. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. Yet the cumulative work of repeated calibration, logistical coordination, and subtle engineering adjustment forms a meditative rhythm, as unhurried and deliberate as a feather drifting down through a misty forest canopy, settling softly into every component of the vehicle, and quietly extending BYD's footprint in a new landscape. Later in 2024, BYD gently launched the Song Pro PHEV in Chile, a hybrid vehicle that quietly balances internal combustion and electric power, requiring patient calibration of energy distribution, regenerative braking, and battery management systems. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Hybrid vehicles are particularly meticulous in their engineering, as the internal combustion engine must work seamlessly with the electric motor, and the software controlling transitions between power sources is softly tuned through repeated tests, each cycle measuring efficiency, smoothness, and thermal stability. Engineers gently observe torque allocation, monitor vibration patterns, and adjust software logic, while designers ensure interior ergonomics and cabin comfort remain consistent despite the subtle mechanical interplay beneath. You may not care. And that is completely fine. Yet the quiet, repeated observation and careful calibration of these hybrid systems form a lullaby of industrial patience, a soft, contemplative rhythm that drifts through factories, test tracks, and shipping logistics, slowly weaving Chile into the gently expanding ecosystem of BYD vehicles. Also in 2024, BYD quietly opened a logistics partnership with SEVA in Europe, a soft expansion that ensures smoother distribution of vehicles across multiple countries, with careful attention to customs, storage conditions, and transport environments. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Logistics in Europe involves patient coordination of warehouse temperature, humidity, and electricity for battery maintenance, along with careful sequencing of deliveries to avoid congestion at ports or dealerships. Each truck, shipping container, or rail car is monitored for battery voltage stability and mechanical vibrations, ensuring that vehicles arrive gently and safely at their destinations. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. Yet the gentle orchestration of logistics, transport monitoring, and soft oversight of delivery schedules forms a contemplative cadence, like slowly turning gears submerged in a misty morning, quietly ensuring that vehicles glide seamlessly from production floors to eager hands across Europe. Moving softly into 2025, BYD began planning 2 plug-in hybrid vehicles for Germany, including the Dolphin Surf and a Denza premium model, while observing a notable rise in Q1 sales from 8,500 to 37,000 units, a quietly impressive shift in the rhythm of consumer adoption. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Planning new models for Germany requires patient adaptation to EU regulations, climate-specific thermal management, and careful calibration of hybrid control systems to accommodate local driving patterns. Engineers gently observe motor response, battery heating, regenerative braking efficiency, and software integration, repeating each test until performance is soft, predictable, and harmonious. You may not care. And that is completely fine. Yet the slow accumulation of design refinement, regulatory alignment, and production oversight forms a meditative, almost invisible cadence, extending like moss over stone, settling softly across factory floors, test tracks, and eventual dealerships, quietly shaping the rhythm of BYD's presence in Germany. Also in 2025, BYD planned the launch of the all-electric E7 sedan on May 17, targeting corporate fleet customers, a softly strategic move that required careful attention to charging infrastructure, range consistency, and battery thermal stability. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, corporate fleet vehicles are often subject to repeated testing under varied operational loads, monitoring energy efficiency, acceleration consistency, regenerative braking effectiveness, and long-term battery degradation patterns. Engineers patiently observe software-controlled energy allocation, recalibrate vehicle systems for predictable daily performance, and ensure charging protocols are seamlessly integrated with fleet management systems. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. Yet the quiet repetition, careful observation, and soft orchestration of engineering, software, and logistics together form a gentle, reflective rhythm, like drifting feathers over calm water, softly preparing each E7 to glide quietly into the rhythm of corporate mobility. And so we drift gently into the unfolding year of 2025, when BYD quietly prepared to introduce the Denza B5, a premium hybrid off-roader, into the soft, green landscapes of the United Kingdom, delicately targeting drivers who might otherwise consider a defender. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, producing a premium hybrid off-roader is not a simple matter of combining a motor and a battery with a chassis. Engineers softly observe the interplay between combustion engine torque and electric motor assistance, measuring acceleration, braking, and regenerative energy flow under repeated cycles, ensuring that the hybrid system delivers both predictable power and serene efficiency, even on gently undulating terrain or steep inclines. Suspension travel is observed with patient care, dampers tuned in multiple iterations, and chassis flex measured under soft stress tests that are repeated again and again, almost imperceptibly, yet with meticulous precision. Designers attend tenderly to interior ergonomics, seating comfort, cabin acoustics, and control layout, softening each interaction for the driver, while exterior styling is subtly considered to harmonize with expectations of off-road robustness without abrupt visual aggression. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. Yet the gentle coordination of mechanical calibration, software integration, aesthetic refinement, and ergonomic care forms a quiet rhythm, like slowly turning gears enveloped in morning mist, drifting gently across workshops, test tracks, and eventually the roads of the UK, allowing each Denza B5 to carry with it a patient, thoughtful cadence of engineering. Also in 2025, BYD softly extended Denza's reach into Europe with the introduction of the Z9 GT, the D9 MPV, and the Denza B5, all gently built upon the E-Cubed platform, a flexible architecture quietly designed to accommodate both pure electric and hybrid drivetrains. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the E-Cubed platform allows repeated cycles of battery placement optimization, software harmonization, and structural integrity tests, providing engineers with a framework for precise energy management, thermal stability, and chassis rigidity across multiple vehicle types. Each vehicle is observed under slow, deliberate simulations of acceleration, regenerative braking, suspension articulation, and cabin vibration, while interior designers softly adjust seating angles, tactile surfaces, and ambient cabin noise to create a predictable, comforting environment for occupants. You may not notice it. And that is completely fine. Yet the quiet orchestration of engineering, platform harmonization, and iterative design forms a gentle rhythm, drifting almost imperceptibly across assembly lines, software labs, and design studios, creating a subtle, continuous lullaby of consistency, reliability, and patient automotive craftsmanship that softly carries vehicles from conception to European roads. And as the calendar gently turned to reflect 2024, BYD quietly sold a total of 4.27 million vehicles, including 1.76 million electric vehicles, a softly significant milestone that also allowed the company to surpass Tesla in total revenue, a gentle echo of commercial accomplishment rather than any sudden fanfare. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, revenue surpassing another manufacturer is not a dramatic fireworks display, it is the quiet accumulation of careful production scheduling, patient quality control, repeated software calibration, attentive logistics, and subtle adaptation to markets around the world. Each vehicle, whether electric or hybrid, passes through cycles of battery thermal testing, motor performance checks, and repeated system integration observations, while supply chains are softly monitored to ensure uninterrupted flow of components, parts, and raw materials. Yet the quiet, persistent rhythm of engineering diligence, manufacturing precision, and logistical coordination forms a contemplative cadence, like mist slowly rolling over moss-covered stones, softly enveloping BYD's global operations and allowing the cumulative weight of careful attention, repetition, and patient oversight to gently manifest in both production totals and financial performance, a lullaby of methodical progress and unhurried success. You may not care. And that is completely fine. For the smallest details, the exact year, the subtle expansion, the industrial smells, and the office logistics, are the gentle lullabies of history. If your eyes are closed, if your thoughts are drifting, then my job here is done for today. Thank you for spending this unremarkable moment with me. You have listened to The Sleepy Sloth, where uninteresting things become the softest lullabies.